Hey, what is up, everybody? This is your boy AJ Trip, and welcome to the game according to me. This is a simulcast where we are doing it on YouTube, and we're doing it on the podcast version. So, if you're listening on the podcast, make sure you go over to AJ Trip on YouTube, search there, find me, make sure you subscribe. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you click in the description box down below. There's a link to where my podcasts are at. My podcast is on many platforms. You can go there and listen to my podcast on any of those platforms. Make sure you go there and you do that, all right? Alrighty then. So last night, the last dance. It was supposed to be in June during the NBA Finals. However, because of COVID-19, we have, basically postponing all of sports and all of entertainment. Um, the ESPN and Netflix and the producers and everything like that, they got together and they said, well, people out there, they need some entertainment. They need something to, they just can't, they can't continue watching the Tiger Kings of the world and all these other things in the world. They need sports. And what's best for sports is to talk about the greatest of all time, the greatest NBA player of all time, the greatest athlete of all time. That's Michael Jeffrey Jordan and his Chicago Bulls from the 97-98 season, the last of the dynasty. And to just think that was, you know, that was almost, what was it, 30 or 20 or 22 years ago. That's insane, man. That's really insane. And me being from Chicago born and Chicago bred dude. Oh, this is my, that's my childhood right there. I was 16, you know, when the last dance happened, and oh man, it's been a struggle, for the Bulls, there's a Michael made a comment. He made it at the 96-97 season where he kind of said, well, listen, the Bull, the because they wanted to, they wanted to try to, they were thinking about actually wanting to rebuild after that season. They wanted to rebuild after that season, and they said, listen, if you, if but if you do that and you do this, this ain't gonna happen, So they finally decided on, well, let's go ahead and let's go for one last ride. And it's just, it was in fantastic stuff. This, we knew this was gonna be good, but we didn't know. And I think one of the best things about this is that we're talking about the 97-98 team, but we're also going back in time. We're going back in time, which is good. Talking about a lot of the things that would happen on in the past, you know. And we have so much stuff to get to. I'm gonna try to get through all of it. I'm probably gonna be jumping around because of my thoughts, but you knew this was gonna be good. The first two episodes proved it, and it was just. I cannot wait for It's the next 4 weeks. We're gonna get 2 episodes a week for the whole 10 episodes, and it is going to be so good, so good, so good. Um, so we're gonna talk about a lot of things here. So we went back. We talked about the back in time to the early Bulls, when the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, when they were not good and they were not getting traction in Chicago, and there wasn't really a fandom because the Bulls were so bad, and they were, and it was a hard time, being in Chicago, because you had the Bears, who were this Bears town. The Bears are number one. And the North Siders are Cub fans, South Siders are Sox fans. There was hockey back then in Chicago was pretty It was pretty decent. It was better. At least it was better than the Bulls, obviously. The Bulls were just not drawing traction at all. And then we had the great draft of 1984, and um, it's wild because that '84 draft is a pretty darn good draft. You know, I think Charles Barkley came out in that draft. Many others came out in that draft. But when you talk about that draft, you talk about the first three. Houston had the number one pick. They took Hakeem Olajuwon. They took Hakeem Olajuwon. That was it. Portland Trail Blazers had the number two pick. Now they had Clyde Drexler at shooting guard. So the GM was like, well, listen, you got Clyde Drexler shooting guard, Michael's a shooting guard. What we need is a big man because back in those days, back in the '80s, if you didn't have, and even into the '90s, if you didn't have a dominant force in the middle, you wasn't winning anything. You wasn't going to win anything for the most part. You needed a big man in the middle. And they had their shooting guard, who was Clyde Drexler, who was excellent in Portland. So they were going to go with Sam Bowie. And that leaves Chicago at number 3 for Michael Jordan. And what many people say now is that, listen, we could have easily, right? We could have easily moved Clyde to the 3, and if Jordan plays shooting guard or vice versa, or even play them both in the backcourt. Because Michael could have played point guard. He in '87, I believe it was, he played most of the '87 season at point, and he had a string of triple doubles, throughout that entire season. But maybe it was '86. It was 86 or '87. One of the two. One of the two. Might even '88. I'm not sure. I can't. I was young back then, and to be very honest with you, I wasn't into basketball very much, so I don't remember this. But these are the stories that you hear from people who did remember it. So but they decided to go Sam Bowie, and Sam Bowie, he had told with his feet, and he wasn't the player that people thought he could have been, and Bulls took Michael Jordan. And that's where it all began in Chicago. Very funny story. They talk about when Michael got there. you know, there was some stuff going on, and it was it was called the Traveling Cocaine Circus. Michael laughed and said, "I never heard of that. I never heard of that." But he did tell the story where it was like, I guess it was they were on the road, I guess, and he was looking for everybody, and he knocked on the door, and he heard people shh, 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 and the voice said, "Who is it?" He said, "It's MJ." He said, "Oh, it's a rookie. It's a rookie." Then he let Michael in, and Michael comes in, and there's I guess there's lines of coke over here, and then there's weed all over here, and there's women all over the other place, and Michael's like, "Hey man, I gotta get out of here because if there's a raid, then I'm gonna be I'm gonna be taken down because I'm accessory." So he left, but and rightfully so. That's what it did. See, Michael was already thinking about that's his future. I love that about Mike. One of the reasons why he had to go. He was like, "Listen, I ain't gonna be stuck in here." So he was already from his rookie year. He had already been a loner. So yeah, those were not his vices. His vices are other things: golf and gambling and a little bit of both. Right. So uh, there's some great stuff there. Um, he has to talk about him back in his college days in UNC. Talked about him being um, Mike Jordan, and then once he hit that shot and to win the championship for UNC, he became Michael Jordan. And and there's a lot of people who talk about just his thing and his domination and his want to be so good, and And even they're talking about Bobby Knight, even talks about on that '84 Olympic team, talking about he's the best player he's ever seen. Going back to the draft, he called Portland draft and said, "You should really pick Michael Jordan." And the guy told him, "We need a big man." He said, "Well, we need a center. Just we'll play Michael Jordan in center." You don't pass on this dude. So there was a lot of people who saw, even though his agent David Falk says he can't, nobody saw what he was going to be, but some people did see that he was going to be great. Maybe he wasn't going to be the greatest of all time. And so that was just totally, totally awesome. Um, a lot of other stories that come out of this. Um, so he he breaks his foot his sophomore his senior his second year. He breaks his breaks his ankle, and they had him. So he sits out, and they had him on a minutes restriction, and he couldn't play no more than 14 minutes. And there was some thought from Jerry Krause, which is one of the reasons why this is the start of the kind of the feud between Michael and Jerry. There was some thought from Jerry Krause that that they should want to kind of sit out. Let him not work and let him, and try to get a draft pick. And Michael didn't want that. Michael wanted to, Michael wanted to play. So he said that in those 15 minutes, he was going to explode and do whatever he can to make sure the team won. And that's what he did. In those 15 minutes, it was just crazy. And even got to the point to his last game of the season against the Indiana Pacers. Uh, uh, there was, he had played his 14 minutes up. They were down by one, and he was telling the coach Stan Albright, "Come on, man, it's 31 seconds. Let me in. Let me in." He said, "No, if you play, if I put you in, I'm gonna get fired." So he sat him on the bench, and they got there and they did the whole thing. And John Paxson hit a nice little running shot in the middle, hit it with the rim. They stopped them on defense. They won the game. They made the playoffs. They were named the AC. And so it was just impressionable. So he even had that impression right at the end to make his team just better, even though he was on the bench. So great stuff there. And then that leads into the playoffs, and the Bulls are the 8th seed, and those Boston Celtics. Oh, that team was incredible that year. Those Boston Celtics were the 1 seed, and they were without question the best team uh, that year. And I would be very hesitant to say they was probably the best team of the 80s, that 85-86 Boston Celtics team. Just incredible. The players that they had there, the Hall of Famers of Walton and McHale and Parrish and Bird and Dennis Johnson. Danny Ainge was a great player. And so many other Rick Carlisle was on that team. There's a funny thing where they talked about in one of the games, Rick Carlisle was guarding Jordan, and he just couldn't stop him. There's no way he could stop him. And watching a young Rick Carlisle is incredible. It really is. So yeah, and they just couldn't do it. And so then they talked about game one. He scored 49. Him and Danny Ainge, they golf in between game one and game two. They go out and have golf. And Danny Ainge beats Michael Jordan in golf. Well, you pissed him off now. So, and then he, they drop off Danny Ainge, and Michael is with somebody. I forget who it is, but somebody knows. He goes, "Tell DJ he got a long night tomorrow night." Yeah, but that's the game he dropped 63 on the Boston Celtics, and it just and that's the game afterwards where and Larry Bird said it in the documentary too, and that's when after the game Larry Bird says that wasn't Michael Jordan, that was God in base basketball shorts. There's no way, and that's when the legend of Michael began, truly began. Unfortunately, they did lose that series. They got swept. Actually, they actually lost that game, and the reason why they lost was because of those Hall of Famers. They had Parrish, McHale, and Bird, they were so good. Johnson and Ainge were so good. Walton, even though he wasn't the player he was in high school or early in his career with the Portland Trailblazers, he was still a very capable six-man off the bench. And Michael was just Michael. And but he didn't have the help at that time. And then that's actually when they decided, after that season, after that playoff series, they decided to try to do things to try to put more things around Michael. They did. Jerry Krause decided to do things like he drafted Horace Grant and he made a draft day trade for Scottie Pippen. Scottie was originally drafted by Seattle. Bulls drafted Odin Palanese. They made a draft day trade. Excuse me. And so then they got Horace and Scottie. They traded Charles Oakley, who was Michael's protector. He was Michael's protector. They traded Charles Oakley to the Knicks for Bill Cartwright. You got their center, and they made other draft picks as time went on, and that was very helpful in the Bulls in their first repeat. And we'll probably get to those in the later episodes. But that's how we got so far to there. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of things. So there was some really good stuff there, and that was around the first or second episode. Um, first episode. The second episode was mostly about Scotty. Because in 1997, 1998, Scotty had foot surgery. He had foot surgery. He had foot surgery, and Scotty waited to put off his foot surgery until the beginning of the season to basically spite Jerry Cross for not kind of restructuring his contract. Now, you have to go back to Scotty's history, and they did a good job of going there. Scotty had a father and a mother, both were in wheelchairs. Both, were, and he wanted to take care of them. So in 91, he signed a 7-year, $18 million contract. Now, that's not $18 million a year. That's $18 million in total. 7 years. Jerry Reinsdorf, he told him that I don't think this is a good contract for you to sign. But if you sign it, don't come back looking to restructure because that's not going to happen. He told him that, but because of his family issues at home with his father and his mother, he wanted to make sure that he had the money for them to take care of them. So he signed a 7-year, $18 million contract. And obviously, when he was back in 97, 98, he was underpaid. He was the sixth player on the Bulls who played. Luke Longley was ahead of him, Ron Harper, Dennis Rodman. Of course, Michael Jordan was. Michael Jordan had, 15 times his salary. He was making $33 million. And here was Pip making 2.6 or something like that. And he was the sixth highest paid player on the Bulls. He was 122nd highest paid player in the NBA that year. And because Jerry Krause and to point Jerry Reinsdorf, they didn't want to restrict his deal, you know, instead of getting his foot surgery at the beginning of the summer, he said, and I quote, "I'm not gonna fuck my summer up because of this. So I'm gonna do what I want to do in the summer, and I'm gonna get it the thing, and that started, and that was basically just to spite Jerry Krause. It really was. It was to spite Jerry Krause. Michael didn't like that. Michael thought Scotty was being selfish. He thought he should have um, done the surgery at the beginning at the right at the end when they won the fifth championship, so that he can be ready for the season. And it just didn't go that way. And there were things that the Bulls really started off slow that year. they were losing the teams that was way beneath them, and they were being taken to the limit. There's a game against the Clippers, where the Clippers were, they were, back then, they were the dredge of the NBA. They weren't that good. They were one of the worst teams, year in and year out. But here are the Bulls with the greatest player of all time, and that team, which is still a good team, being taken to the limit by the Clippers into 2 overtimes. Michael scored 49 that night. They even show a clip of Michael. He's so exasperated at the players that just, come on, give me some help, And, so then apparently at some point Scotty says, I don't want to play for the Bulls anymore. Trade me. And he makes a trade request, and they talk about Scotty and what he wants to be traded and everything like that and how he felt. So it was incredible, and that's where they stopped him. That's where they stopped the thing at the second episode. They stopped it right there. I think they're gonna get into more of the whole issue with the Bulls and Scotty. They talked about, you saw a preview of it, where it's gonna be about the Pistons and the Bulls getting past the Pistons. I think they're gonna go into more of that in the next 2 episodes next week. But yeah, this started off to be a fantastic first night for this one. A couple other things here. Apparently, Jerry Krause told Phil Jackson at the start of the thing that, um, even if you go 82-0, you're still not going to coach the team next year, which is just insane. This is just insane. If you think about it, if think about saying to somebody, you can go 82-0 next year, and we're not going to bring you back. They say in the doc that Jerry Krause had little man's syndrome. He had the Napoleon complex. You know, because he grew up short and heavy, and he was and he always had that complex. And and they showed the clips of him talking about how organizations win championships and all that bullshit. When and but the people who were getting the credit were the ones that deserved it. Scotty, Michael, Dennis, Phil, Horace Grant, all those guys, all the players and the coaches. Jerry Krause did his thing. There's no doubt about that. He did his thing. But the reason why they won was those players, especially that one, Michael Jordan. So he let his ego get in the best of him. He couldn't put that to the side and say we can work together. He didn't let that go, and that was really a shame. That was really, really a shame. It really was. Um, this Michael and Scotty, they did not like Jerry Krause. They really didn't. They always make fun of him. They talked about it. It's they used to call him Crumbs because he gets because he eat a muffin or something like that, and the crumbs would be on his shirt, so they call him Crumbs. There's a bunch of fat jokes and a bunch of short jokes that are just, my goodness gracious. it's it's just incredible, and there's not a lot of sympathy for Jerry Krause. There really isn't. I was watching today. Stephen A. didn't have a lot of sympathy for him. Last night on Twitter, a lot of people didn't have sympathy for him because he broke up the dynasty for no reason other than his own selfish ego. But it does feel bad that he is not here to explain himself. I think that's the thing. I think that's why, and Max Kellerman said that us today. He said that he just wishes that that he doesn't wishes, but he just feels bad for Jerry Krause because he's not here to. he's not here to express himself, because I do think that if Jerry Cross was here, he probably would admit that he did things wrong. He probably would admit that he did things wrong with their team. He really did, and he should not have been so egocentric. He should not have been so wanting of wanting to make rebuild and everything like that. So it's it's not good. So, and I think the last takeaway, I got a lot of things down here. Oh, well, yeah. So they also show it like in the first episode. They go about to of um the beginning of the like 97, 98 season, the preseason, and the Bulls are in Paris. They're in Paris and they're playing in the McDonald's Championship, and they're just everybody in there wants to be talking about Michael, and Michael has this crowd around him as if is what you would see now with like Justin Bieber or BTS or one of these like groups like this. Like if they would walk the street, you would see a bunch of kids around them and something like that, and that's what this was. This was just the kids and grown-ups and everything in between just wanting to get Michael and the Bulls. And so that was a great shot. Another great shot was Michael. I don't know if it's a Taylor or if it's a reporter or what, but somebody asks Michael for an autograph, and Michael has a smirk on his face, and he kind of looks over his shoulder, and because the handler comes over and says, "No, no, that's not, no, you can't do it." So he's like, "No, no, 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 thank you." So that's wow, wow. And I guess the last thing we do here is that you also what you realize here is that there was a lot of clips in this show, and the clips of people that we have lost. We lost Stuart Scott. They showed a lot of stuff from ESPN with Stuart Scott. That's just one clip, but we saw Craig Sager once in the show, so it just people we lost. As we go on into this episode, we're gonna hear from Kobe Bryant. We're gonna hear from David Stern. We did hear from David Stern in this one a little bit, and we're gonna hear from more and more of these people who sat down before they passed away with Kobe and David. So this is not only is this a documentary about the 97 98 Bulls, not only is this a documentary about Michael Jordan, um, and the impact that he had on certain people and the NBA and the entire world in general. Even like Magic Johnson put out a tweet last night where he said that, in his opinion, the greatest entertainers of all time were Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, Beyonce, and Muhammad Ali. The Mount Rushmore of entertainers. So it's it means so much. And the one thing I do hate is that it has once again reignited the GOAT issue on who's better, Michael or LeBron. And it's really one of the most stupidest things I've ever encountered with this. There's absolutely no way that LeBron is better than Michael. I did a video on it. I'll put it up in the corner so you can go watch that if you're watching on YouTube. Um, if not, if you're listening to this on the podcast, again, go to my YouTube channel. It's in my Point Blank Period End of Discussion playlist. You can find it there. But I'm just explaining to and you're getting people who like Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson loved Kobe Bryant. LeBron James is on his team, but Michael Jordan's the greatest of all time. He said that, and he said there's no doubt about this. And I'm sure you're gonna hear this from many people in this documentary that Michael's the greatest of all time, unless Bill Laimbeer is interviewed, then he's gonna tell you that it's LeBron James, but it isn't. Bill Laimbeer is one of the most pettiest human beings in the world, and he's a living troll. So that's all he does. He says that because he doesn't. You can't think that he's saying that because he's a troll. And that's what everybody else said. Anybody, anybody who's really saying that LeBron James better than Michael Jordan is being a troll. They're trolling you because they want to get you fired up and riled up. It's just better just to not respond to these numbskulls. Anyway, I'm sure there's some who believe it because there are people who believe that the the what's the name, the Earth was flat and the moon landing was fake. So of course the people are going to believe that somebody else is better than Michael, but they're fools. Don't buy into it. So yeah, this again, first episodes were fantastic. I cannot wait to do the next one. Um, right now, I'm trying to figure out how I want to do these. I want to know if I want to do these every Monday afterwards, where I do the podcast and I do the video for it. If I do that recapping what you saw the night before, or if I do a rapid reaction right afterwards. I'm not sure how I necessarily want to go about it, but no matter wherever you are, right? You make sure you go to YouTube, right? YouTube.com/A20 or search AJ Trip. Make sure you click the notification bell to get notified when if I do go live afterwards, or when I upload the video Monday morning and or Monday afternoon, whenever, and talking about this. So if you want to get your last dance fix in from me, you can, and so you can do that. And of course, I'll be doing the audio, uploading the audio to my podcast. So you make sure you go to the podcast. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, link is in the description box down below, as well as um, on the podcast. And they have so many links where you can find my podcast, uh, all of them. So just make sure that you go and get you one, wherever it is. So, yeah. Really, really fun. This is gonna be a blast. Us sports fans, we needed this, and we're gonna get some good more. It's gonna get even better and better. I promise you. I really do believe that it's gonna get even better and better as the weeks go on. So yeah, for those of you guys on YouTube, post your comments down below. Tell me what you guys think. Tell me what you guys thought about The Last Dance, about Scottie Pippen being underpaid, and the things with Jerry Krause and everything like that. The highlights. What was your takeaway from the first two episodes? Let me know all of this down in the comment section. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you go to patreon.com/AJTrip to become a Patreon. When I hit a certain number of Patreons, you will be able to kind of dictate what goes on my channel, whether it's here on YouTube, whether it's on Twitch and video games, whether it's on my podcast. And speaking of podcasts, if you're listening on my podcast, you can go to anchorfm.com and you can not only become a patron from patreon.com, but you can become a subscriber. 3 tiers: 99-cent tier, 4.99-cent tier, or 9.99-cent tier. So wherever it is, whether you want to do it on Patreon or whether you want to go to the Anchor FM, you can join me and subscribe and become a patron or become a subscriber, whatever you feel you would like to do. I just want to thank you guys so much for watching it and for watching and for listening. I combined the two, for watching. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Thank you guys so much. As always, be good to each other, y'all. Be careful out there. And I am out.